At the Hale family dinner, my mother lifted her glass and said it like a blessing. Your sister has always been the provider. Applause broke out around the table, forks clinking, smiles rehearsed. I sat there, the taste of overcooked salmon turning metallic in my mouth, and watched them toast a fantasy built on my credit score. The candlelight blurred, and something in me, something quiet and tired, finally cracked. I leaned back, let the noise fade, and said, "Perfect. Then she can handle the $9,200 balance I've been covering." Silence. Not even the radiator dared to hum. Before I tell you how that one sentence shattered everything my family pretended to be, tell me, where are you listening from? So I know I'm not the only one who's ever been done paying for other people's lies. In my family, perfection wasn't love. It was currency. Every dinner, every photo, every forced smile was proof that the Hales had it all together. We were the kind of family that neighbors waved to from driveways, the kind that sent coordinated Christmas cards in early November. But behind every glossy picture, there was me patching holes, keeping score, and pretending not to notice how uneven the scales really were. My mother, Marianne, ran the house like a stage manager. She ironed tablecloths for casual lunches, lit candles for ambiance, and spoke in that soft, polite tone that could kill a conversation faster than any shout. My father, Richard, liked to think of himself as the head of the table, but he mostly passed judgment like a judge who'd already decided the verdict. And then there was Aurelia, my sister, the golden one. The one who never seemed to fall because someone else always caught her. Usually, that someone was me. I'm 32. I work full-time as an analyst, spend most of my evenings buried in spreadsheets, and live alone in an apartment where silence actually means peace. For years, I thought I could keep our family balanced if I just tried hard enough, if I smiled through the guilt trips and fixed what others broke. But I was wrong. The cracks weren't on the surface. They were structural. 6 months before that dinner, Aurelia called me from a parking lot, voice trembling with manufactured panic. "It's just a temporary freeze. Shirina," she said, "the bank messed up a form. I just need you to co-sign for one card, just a month promise." I told myself it was family. I told myself she'd fix it. I told myself the same lie my parents always did: Aurelia means well. So I signed. A month later, my phone started pinging with payment alerts. I brushed it off, thinking it would be resolved soon. By the third month, the balance had sprouted late fees like weeds. I emailed her twice, polite, careful, factual. She replied with a heart emoji, and "You're an angel." Meanwhile, her life online bloomed like nothing had happened. She posted sunrise yoga, rooftop brunches, quotes about women supporting women. My mom shared every post. My dad commented with clapping emojis. I watched in silence, knowing those smiles were funded by my exhaustion. Then one Thursday, Marianne called. "Family dinner this weekend," she said brightly. "Something special." I asked what the occasion was. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then said, "You'll see." When I arrived that night, the good china was out, the porcelain set we only used for holidays or major announcements. In our family, that set had meaning. It was the prophecy of pretense. Whenever those plates appeared, truth was about to be buried under politeness. I should have turned around at the door, but I didn't. I took my seat at that shining table, unaware that the applause waiting for me wasn't celebration, it was a verdict. The night of the dinner, everything gleamed a little too perfectly. The tablecloth was starched flat. The silverware caught the candlelight like polished mirrors, and the air smelled faintly of roasted salmon and performance. Marianne hovered near the table, adjusting napkins that didn't need adjusting, humming a hymn under her breath like she was trying to calm herself. or maybe to signal that this was going to be one of those nights where we pretended to be happy. Richard sat at the head of the table, posture, stiff expression carved into authority. He cleared his throat before anyone spoke, the way he always did when he was about to make something sound official. Aurelia sat to his right, dressed like she was about to accept an award. Gold earring, silk blouse, her hair shining just so. When she smiled, it was the kind that reached no further than her reflection in her wine glass. "Everyone ready?" My mother chirped, her tone too bright to be casual. "Let's begin." We passed the salad bowls and small talk around the table like props in a play. Aunt Beth complimented Aurelia's business venture. Uncle Frank asked about that exciting project she'd been leading. I sat there listening to the fiction grow legs. Aurelia spoke about networking, about brand partnerships, about helping women in tech find their voice. The words sounded impressive, hollow and expensive. Then Richard lifted his glass. The conversation stilled, as if on cue. "I want to say something," he began, his voice deep, steady, rehearsed. "This family has always believed in hard work, in building something real, and no one represents that better than Aurelia." My fingers tightened around my glass. Marianne's eyes shone as she looked at my sister. "Your sister has always been the provider," she said softly but loud enough for everyone to hear. The words hung in the air, golden and poisonous. Provider. The same word she'd used when I paid the bills last winter, when I covered the car insurance, when Aurelia called me crying over a clerical mistake. Only this time, the applause followed. Everyone at the table clapped. Polite, rhythmic, mechanical. The sound filled the room, swallowed me whole. Even Richard joined in, tapping his fingers against his glass with a proud half-smile. Aurelia dipped her chin in mock humility, the perfect actress in her favorite role. I stared down at my plate. The food blurred my reflection, wobbled in the gravy's sheen. My heart didn't race, it hardened. Each clap echoed in my chest like a hammer against something long cracked. When the noise finally died, Marianne reached across the table, touching Aurelia's wrist. "We're just so proud of you," she said. "You've carried this family." That was the moment something inside me snapped into perfect icy focus. I leaned back in my chair. My voice came out even quiet, controlled. "Perfect," I said. "Then she can handle the $9,200 balance I've been covering." Forks froze midair. Aurelia's head jerked up. What I set my glass down gently. "The card I co-signed for you, the one you said was temporary." Color drained from her face. "You're exaggerating itemized payments, interest, and late fees," I interrupted. "All under my name." Marianne blinked, her lips parting in silent horror. "Sweetheart, not here." Richard's tone turned sharp. "Enough." But I didn't stop. I reached into my bag and placed a thick envelope in the center of the table. It landed with a dull thud that silenced the room. "Bills," I said. "Since you're the provider." Aurelia's jaw trembled. "You could have talked to me privately." "I did," I said. "Twice. You left me on red and flew to Cabo. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The only sound was the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Then Aurelia pushed back her chair, trying to laugh it off. "You're being dramatic." Maybe I said standing, but at least I'm being honest. Richard's face reddened. "You will not embarrass this family in front of everyone." I met his eyes. I didn't. I just stopped pretending. I turned and walked out, the envelope still sitting on the table like a loaded gun no one dared touch. Behind me, the silence cracked Marianne's whisper, a half-swallowed sob, a wine glass clinking. Outside, the night was cold and wet. I stood on the porch, breathing air that didn't taste like lies. The house glowed behind me, my family frozen inside their perfect picture. For once, I didn't feel small for leaving. I felt free. 3 days passed without a single message. Not from Mom, not from Dad, not even from Aurelia. The silence was almost comical. In our family, silence wasn't peace. It was strategy. It meant they were regrouping, rewriting what had happened, assigning blame in whispered tones. I went to work, answered emails, paid bills, but the quiet trailed me like a fog. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected an apology, half expected a demand. Instead, nothing. On the fourth night, as rain slid down my apartment windows, I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Aurelia. Statements. Inside, I dropped screenshots, bills, payment reminders, every receipt of every lie. I wasn't raging anymore. I was documenting. There's a difference. Rage burns fast. Proof lasts. When I clicked save, my hands didn't shake. They used to whenever I thought about disappointing my parents, about being the difficult one. But something about that dinner had burned out my need to be gentle. That's when the message came. Mom, your father wants to talk. Come home tomorrow at 6. No please, no apology, just an order. The next evening, the house looked identical to the night I'd left it. The same good china on the table. The same candles, unlit but ready. Only this time there was no smell of dinner, just tension, heavy and unseasoned. Richard sat at the head again, arms crossed. Marianne hovered behind him, wringing her hands. Aurelia stood by the wall phone, clutched like a shield. Sit, Richard said. His voice was calm, but it carried that familiar weight of judgment. I sat. He slid an envelope across the table. This is to settle things, he said, like adults. Inside was a check for $9 and $200. I didn't touch it. You're paying me off, Richard exhaled sharply. We're closing a chapter. There's no need to drag this through the mud. Marianne jumped in, her voice trembling. Sweetheart, you embarrassed your sister. You blindsided all of us. Let's just end this. I laughed quietly. End what? The part where I carry her debt, or the part where you pretend she's successful? Aurelia flinched. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone. You did that yourself, I said. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Enough. We don't expose family in public. I met his eyes. Then maybe you should stop hiding the truth in private. For a moment, no one breathed. The room seemed to shrink around us. Marianne reached forward, pushing the envelope closer. Take it, Shirina, please, let's move on. I folded the check, neatly slid it back toward her. This isn't forgiveness, I said. It's a receipt. Richard's shoulders sagged. Marianne's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Aurelia stood frozen, like someone waiting for the director to call cut. I rose from my chair, steady. I'm done being your cleanup crew. You wanted to call her the provider? Great. Let her start providing. I walked out. The air outside hit cold and clean. The porch light flicked on behind me, a reflex, one last attempt to guide me back. But I didn't look back. I drove home, opened my laptop again, and created a second folder, The Golden Daughter. This time it wasn't just about money. It was about truth, and I wasn't going to keep it private anymore. The first tremor didn't come from my family. It came from an unknown email. Subject: Hi. I think your sister scammed me. It was late on a Tuesday. The city hummed outside, soft and indifferent. I clicked it open, half curious, half numb. The sender's name was Tessa Holbrook, and in a few sentences she detonated whatever piece I had left. I found your name through a tagged photo. I think your sister Aurelia took money from me and 2 others. Can we talk? Attached were photos of messages, receipts, invoices. At first it felt impossible, like reading fan fiction about my own disaster. But as I scrolled, the pattern became familiar. The same smooth tone, the same fake urgency, the same empty promises. My sister had spun her lies into a business model. That night, I met Tessa at a cafe near my office. She looked young, hopeful in the way that made her betrayal hurt more. Her hand shook around a chipped mug. She told me she was launching She Ascend, Tessa said, a mentorship platform for women in tech. She said if I helped her design the pitch deck, I'd get equity. I worked 3 months, no pay, no contract. Then she ghosted us. I nodded slowly. Did she ever mention investors? Yeah, Tessa said. She said she had one, a family backer. That was you, wasn't it? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. When I got home, I opened my laptop and added a new folder inside The Golden Daughter. Subfolder Victims. By Friday, there were 5 names. Every woman had the same story promises of partnership unpaid work and a disappearing act once the product failed to materialize. Aurelia hadn't just borrowed money, she'd borrowed identities, trust, reputations. Then, out of nowhere, Mason Clark, her ex, showed up at my door. He looked hollowed out. She left this at my place, he said, holding a small external drive wrapped in a scarf. I don't want it. When he left, I plugged it in. Inside were dozens of folders, screenshots, voice notes, transactions, bank statements. But one spreadsheet stopped me cold. Bridge loans. Do not share. Each line had a name, an amount, and a note beside it. Mom, $5,000, pays quietly. Dad, $2,800. Cover story, business investment. Ethan Ward, $12,000. Naive folds if cornered. Shirina, $9,200. Reliable backstop. Can use again. I stared until the text blurred. It wasn't a sister's list. It was a predator's playbook. I called Ethan our cousin. He answered on the second ring. She got you too, I said quietly. A long pause. Then, how much enough that she labeled you an easy mark? He laughed bitterly. My wife doesn't even know. She said it was an investment. Tell her I said. The secret's the poison. We met at a diner that night sharing stories over cold fries and burnt coffee. Ethan asked the question I'd been circling for weeks. You're going to expose her, aren't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. Mom, her voice trembled through the receiver. People are starting to talk online. There's a post about her company. You need to stop this before it ruins her. I kept my voice calm. It's not me, Mom. It's the truth catching up. Don't you dare sound proud of this. I'm not proud, I said. I'm done hiding it. That night, I organized every file into a single timeline. Payments, bills, receipts, messages, photos. A chain of cause and effect that couldn't be undone. And then at 2:14 a.m., I opened a new document. Title, The Golden Daughter Family Silence. A Sister's Lies and the Cost We Paid. The words poured out faster than I expected. I didn't write like someone angry. I wrote like someone finally free. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I just told the truth. By dawn, the document was 20 pages long. I hovered over the publish button for a long time. My reflection glared back from the dark laptop screen, tired, resolute, unflinching. I whispered the same words I'd said that night at dinner. Perfect. Then she can handle the balance. And I clicked post. The story exploded faster than I could refresh my notifications. Within hours, it was everywhere: Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit. People shared it under hashtags, had golden daughter scam, family abuse of trust, She Ascend fraud. Screenshots flooded in Aurelia's emails, her fake business pages, even voice messages she'd sent to potential partners. The internet became a living archive of her lies. At noon, the company she'd recently interviewed with released a public statement. "We have rescinded our offer to Ms. Hale and stand with those affected." The news hit harder than I thought it would. Not joy, just the hollow sound of truth landing where it belonged. Then my phone rang again. "Mom." Her voice was breaking. "She came home, Shirina. She's shaking. She says she's scared of you." "Of me?" I asked. "Or of the consequences? She's your sister, and I was your daughter," I said, "but that never stopped you from ignoring the math." There was a pause, a wet, ragged breath. "Please take it all down. You'll ruin her life." "She already ruined it," I said softly. "I just stopped paying the interest." When the call ended, I sat in silence, surrounded by the low hum of my computer. My inbox filled with messages, strangers thanking me, victims reaching out, others warning me to be careful. I opened one more email, no subject line, no signature. "You think you're better than me?" No name, but I didn't need one. I created one last folder, Aurelia. Final. Inside, I saved everything. The story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about record keeping, about making sure no one else would mistake silence for loyalty again. That night, I stood by my window watching the rain streak down the glass. Somewhere out there, my sister was hiding from her own reflection. For years, she'd lived off my credit, my peace, my restraint. Now she was bankrupt in all the ways that mattered. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to let her stay that way. By morning, my story had a life of its own. The internet had turned into a courtroom, and Aurelia was on trial. People dug through her posts, found old interviews, screenshots, photos from fake conferences. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. The comments were brutal but honest. Every lie she'd told now had witnesses. I didn't celebrate. I watched, quietly, the same way I used to watch her be praised while I stayed in the background. Only this time the spotlight was justice, not favoritism. At noon, I got another call from Mom. Her voice was shredded. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's terrified. Please, Shirina, it's enough." "No," I said gently. "It's true. You could have handled this privately. I tried privately, remember? You all ignored me until it was public." Silence. Then faintly, "We thought we were keeping the peace." "No, Mom," I said. "You were keeping the illusion." Later that day, my dad showed up at my apartment. No folder this time, no pretense. Just him, smaller than I remembered. He handed me an envelope, $15,000. To cover whatever she took, he said, "We just want this to end. I didn't open it. That's not what I need." He looked lost. "Then what do you want?" "Accountability," I said. "Just once, I want to hear you say she was wrong and that you helped her stay that way." He looked down at the floor, eyes wet. "I thought I was protecting her. You were protecting the lie." He nodded slowly. "Do what you need to do." When he left, the envelope sat untouched on the counter. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. An email from my parents blinked at the top of my inbox. "Subject: Family Matters. We're hurt by your decision to make this public. For now, it's best we end contact. Please respect our wishes. No apology, no truth. Just another cover letter for denial." I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the quiet settle in. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. That night, I sat on my balcony with the city breathing below me, traffic lights, blinking sirens fading in the distance, the air carrying that faint smell of rain and smoke. My glass of wine was half finished, my heart strangely light. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for the next apology I'd have to make. I opened my laptop one last time. On the desktop sat a single folder, Aurelia Final. I uploaded it to the cloud, encrypted, untouchable. Not to hurt her, just to keep the truth safe. People online would eventually move on. The headlines would fade, new scandals would take their place. But for me, this wasn't about noise. It was about finally living in silence that didn't demand my obedience. I looked out at the city lights, each one a small pulse of survival, and whispered, "They called it betrayal. I call it boundaries." If you've ever had to choose truth over peace, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments and subscribe if you believe some families don't need secrets. They need witnesses.